Hello again. So far, I realized that I didn't really do a very good example of showing you the pattern for knitting in the round. So I'm going to use a much bigger yarn. This is a super bulky yarn, and I'm going to get out the appropriate needle for that yarn and show you really how it's done. And you're probably going to find that it's easier to see it on this yarn than it was to see it on the sock yarn, just because my camera wasn't zoomed in properly. So we're going to use this leftover Cloudborne Highland roving wool that I had from a sweater project I made a while ago. And so what you're going to need is your yarn and, of course, your knitting needles. I'm going to show you in the circular knitting needles, which, like I told you, is very similar to knitting with the double pointed needles. Some people find it easier to avoid ladders using circular needles, so I'm just going to show you this way so you can have a better grasp on having both methods. And so we're just going to cast on a few stitches here, and we'll give you an idea. There's your slip knot, and you put that onto your needle, and now you're going to begin casting on. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and as you can see, the stitches just sort of slip onto the cable kind of seamlessly, and you don't have to worry about them really, so that's the good part. We're on 17. Let me try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and actually I would like to show you the magic loop method of knitting, but I'm going to show you that in a future video. First, I'm just going to show you knitting in the round without the magic loop method, so I'm going to have to get quite a few more stitches on here. So I'm going to do that, and while I do that, I will count my stitches and then get back to you to show you what to do when you're ready to join in the round. Alright, so I've got 78 stitches on my circular needles, and you can do that many or more or fewer depending on how long your cable is. But what you basically want to do in order to have a successful time at this without having to use the magic loop method is create enough stitches to go all the way around your needles, which I have done here. The important thing to do in this next step is to make sure that your stitches are not twisted. So you want all the work to be facing the inside with the stitch to the outside of your work. So I'm just going to kind of make sure that that is the case. And it's just about right. It's kind of hard to tell with this one because there's a bit of a twist in the work. But there we go. And so you have your beginning here, here's your tail, and you have your working yarn here. And you're going to actually knit backwards. So you're going to stick your needle into the first stitch, wrap around the right hand needle, like so, and pull through. And that will join your work. And then you can continue either by going around in that direction, or you can turn your work move your thread to the back, slip the stitch you just made onto your right hand needle, and you're going to go through and wrap around and knit. And as you can see, you've created some work here. So instead of placing a stitch marker at the beginning of your round, you can just use your tail as your stitch marker. Unless your pattern calls for extra stitch markers, this is actually very useful in finding when the beginning of your round is, so you know how to start the next round, or what the equivalent of a row would be. We only call them rounds because you're literally knitting in the round in a spiral as it goes up and up and up, and develops your work, whether it's a hat or a sweater or a cowl or what have you. So you're just going to pull through, dip in knitwise, wrap around, pull through, knitwise, wrap around, pull through. And if it helps, you can slide your stitches to the end of your needle, trying not to create any ladders in your work, which shouldn't be too difficult if you have enough stitches on your needle. So we're just going to continue and knit, continue and knit. And I chose a bigger yarn just so it would be easier for you to see. Hopefully this is easier to see than the sock pattern we were working on earlier. I'm really sorry about that. If there were any complaints, I apologize. That was just to give you a general idea about knitting in the round on double pointed needles, and I can have more tutorials on that in the future with bigger double pointed needles. And so we're just kind of going around. I'm kind of going a little bit slower to show you how this is done, but you can see the difference. Here's the beginning of the round, and here's before we started knitting, just the cast on row, and here's after we've started knitting. And after we've started knitting, there's this extra row of V-stitches, which are your knit stitches. So you can choose all kinds of different cast-ons. I chose just a simple knit cast-on, but what I actually prefer to do in my own work is a long tail cast-on, unless I require a provisional cast-on or something different. The long tail cast-on allows whatever you're making to have a very stretchy edge, which is super useful if you're making like a sweater or a hat or a sock. So yes, long tail cast-on is excellent, and it does require a little bit of extra yarn, but it's totally worth it in the end. So there you have it. This is, oh, let me fix that. This is knitting in the round.